Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined as always this fine Monday, or is it Tuesday, by Mr. Denny Carter. We're going to break down the Colts' quarterback change, the Jets' backfield change, the evolving situations in Baltimore, Jacksonville, Carolina, basically any mid-Atlantic or like southern Atlantic city you can think of, and so much more. But first, Denny, I'm just going to ask you a question. I think probably any of your Twitter followers, any of your longtime loyal readers, some of them may be wondering, and some of them probably know the answer just from following you, a sick individual such as yourself for so long. But this question is a very broad. Why Halloween? Why is Denny Carter so into the pagan holiday of Halloween?
Well, if you think I'm into Halloween now, you wouldn't believe me in my teens and 20s because I have definitely calmed down a bit, and I mostly do the whole Halloween stuff now for the kids, for my kids.
Yeah, and that's what they all say.
Yeah, and we just had our Halloween party this past weekend, so we are known as the Halloween family. Behind me on the bookshelf, I have at least 4 books about the history of Halloween, so I'm well versed in all that. Now, I don't have an answer for why, except for that I am a deeply and tragically a nostalgic person, and what can be more nostalgia provoking than memories of trick-or-treating, right? And even if there were some like terrible times trick-or-treating, you like the human brain works so that you remember it as like the glory days, right? Like oh, if only I could be a kid wearing a hot mask, sweating underneath it, trick-or-treating with kids who were
silently dumping all the $100 bars in a yard as soon as you get them.
Except for I would be picking them up because they are the best candy bar, of course. No. I can't believe you don't like $100,000.
Never even had one. I quite literally never. The wrapping is so unappealing. You couldn't even pay me to eat one.
Wow. So we're judging it based on the wrapping of the candy.
I wish that were a joke, but it actually is true. The wrapper was always so unappealing to me. I'd be like, next.
So you're judging you're judging a candy by its wrapper.
Yes,
that's interesting. I think.
And also, I usually tend to go more towards sweet stuff than chocolatey stuff. But I digress.
Yeah, me too. No, me too. I'm actually just today. My daughter made what was it? Muffins with chocolate chips on them. I took the chocolate chips off. So,
okay, that's kind of messed up. I mean,
don't tell her, please.
I will not tell her.
If her friends are listening, please.
Eleanor, if you're listening, your father still loves you.
Yes. And I just do not love chocolate. But I did want to mention, a funny story about my last hurrah with trick or treating. It came at, some might call, an advanced age. Because most people, you'll say, oh, what year did you stop trick-or-treating? And people will say, oh, I don't know, 11, 12, something like that. Maybe even
I was like 12, maybe 13.
Okay, so my last time trick-or-treating was when I was 18 years old. That is way, way too old. But here's the thing: I had come out of retirement. I retired at 16.
One last job, then at 18.
I came back because my now wife, then girlfriend, had a little brother, still has a little brother, and I had a little brother who each wanted to go trick-or-treating, and they wanted to go trick-or-treating in my parents' neighborhood. So what am I to do? What was I to do? I had to put on a mask. I had to go out and trick-or-treat and then proceed to freak out the entire neighborhood. One of the last houses I ever trick-or-treated at was an old lady came to the door. She saw me, a full-grown man at that point, and she backed away. And she goes, "What are you doing here? Why are you trick-or-treating? Shouldn't you be out doing drugs?"
Are you serious?
And she said that. I swear, I'll never forget that. And I was like, "Is that what I should be doing? Would you prefer me to go do that?" It was very weird.
Yeah, I feel like people are a little more forgiving about that with young women than young men, but that 18 is way, 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 way too old.
Yeah, no, I mean, I obviously I look like I was about to rob every house.
And obviously you did, of course. And there's a lot of stray thought. First, I've been coming under fire in this house been eating probably a few too many of the Airheads we plan to be handing out. and I'm trying to not eat every single red one, but boy, we're kind of running into trouble on that front. And
I can't eat Airheads because they leave that grime in your mouth, like that sugary coat over your teeth. Dude, I would get 12 cavities if I had one Airhead.
Speaking of which, I'm going to the dentist on Wednesday. The greatest scam in this great country remains the dentist. I supposedly have 2 cavities, probably because I've been eating every single red Airhead for now weeks on end. And
listen, good luck, by the way. You're going to have all your teeth pulled, probably. Producer Adam says, it's like your teeth have fur when you eat an Airhead. And it's true. You end up like touching your tongue to your teeth, and you're like, oh, what is that?
No, it's kind of amazing. I'm always real into like synthetic like weird tastes from like Red Bull or candy. I love like clearly like any sugar substance that's been like created like by Monsanto in a lab or like DuPont or something.
Right.
Well, Airheads actually began DuPont Laboratories in 1932.
Right.
Well, I don't know that, but
they were a weapon deployed in World War II.
Yeah, I mean, too much Airhead runoff have been running into the Cuyahoga River. That's actually why it caught on fire. Right. The recipe hasn't changed though, actually.
Right. So it's what you're saying is you do it for health purposes.
Yeah, exactly. We've been talking way too long about Halloween, but I will say too, you know that you're almost 40, Denny Carter, when you're doing your Halloween party, what it sounded like on October 17th or something?
22nd.
Okay. Oh, so it was just literally this past weekend. Okay.
Yeah.
Was the 29th one available, Denny?
Yeah, it actually was, because everyone we asked, we're like, no, we can't do that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
You must be getting old then. Denny.
Yeah, no, I mean, we are. We once had it on Friday the 13th in October for our Halloween party, and I have to say that was pretty great. I'm a big fan.
There's at least a hook there. Yeah, if you're gonna do it early, you can probably only do it in October, Friday the 13th. Then you said getting old. Speaking of getting old, Matthew Ryan,
old,
37 years old. He has been put out to pasture, even though he is injured. The Colts went to great pains to say his benching was not about his injury. Like Jim Irsay basically took the microphone and said, I want to put it in the paper. This is not because he's hurt. Like almost literally, like don't put it that because he was hurt. It's because he was bad.
Right.
And I no longer like him.
That's right.
And it does actually kind of sound like this was an owner-driven benching. I mean, in some ways you could look at it and like if you were like only looking, say, at the newspaper, if those still exist, you would see the Indianapolis Colts are 3-3-1 and right in the thick of it in a very, very bad, as always, AFC South division. But you don't have to do much prying to kind of figure out why Matt Ryan is being benched. One of the worst in the league at EPA per play, one of the worst in the league at every conventional metric, spectacularly failing the eye test as like a player who didn't have much speed or like movement agilities to lose and has now lost that, just is not moving at a level you need to be moving in the NFL, has as many interceptions as touchdowns. It kind of seemed like it was time, but with players like Matt Ryan, they usually get to hang on for much longer than like long past time.
Yeah.
So it is a pretty shocking move. Just kind of what are your thoughts on this? What can our thoughts be on Sam Ehlinger, who entered the league with a bit of a dual threat pedigree coming out of Texas, but also an inaccurate pedigree. I mean, probably being thrown to it's a unique situation that he's being thrown into the fire at 3-3-1, Sam Ehlinger, and just kind of where to begin with this Colts quarterback situation.
Yeah, I have to say I respect the hell out of Irsay for being like, if you're listening, it's because Matt Ryan stinks, not because
I know.
He's injured.
I apprecited the clarification because that is, I mean, they passed up like the textbook move. Oh yeah, he's got a shoulder injury.
Yeah. No, it's not what happened. They were very clear. All right. So my initial thoughts on this is that the short-lived Paris Campbell season is over completely. You can drop him in all leagues. Alec Pierce gets a huge bump, I think, as the only downfield threat the Colts have, and Ehlinger has a strong arm, and I think he has been known to let it rip. Ehlinger himself passes what I call the pulse test in that he has one. So you can roster him in Superflex leagues. But other than that, I don't know if he's going to have much usefulness in one quarterback formats. Again, this is bad. This is bad for all the pass catchers, I think, except for Pierce, who probably will get a few more downfield looks. Now, Matt Ryan, the reason I said on the last week's show, I said, I think I'm prioritizing Paris Campbell, and I should have been more firm about this, Pat. I said, I want Paris Campbell over Alec Pierce, but I didn't say it that directly, but I meant it because Matt Ryan was averaging a league low 5.9 air yards per attempt. Okay. That does not fit the Alec Pierce profile. It fits the Paris Campbell profile. And Campbell went out and scored 23 PPR points this past week against Titans. But that's all over now. I hope you enjoyed it, because that you're not getting that back. And Michael Pittman probably becomes like a wide receiver, bottom range 2.
He'll probably still be in the top 20, especially with bye weeks. If we're looking at like a full slate, there are 30 teams playing this week. Maybe he kind of has to be on like wide receiver 20 to 24 probation as we just see like what in the world is going on with Sam Ehlinger against the Washington Commanders.
Right. So, and it's definitely not good for the running backs. I don't think Ehlinger profiles as a guy who's going to check down very much. All those short, quick throws that Matt Ryan was throwing over the past 2 weeks, all of those go away, I think.
So, I think I have a lot of like kind of like going forward thoughts. One thought, just like writ large on the Colts is this seems to be a shot across the bow at Frank Reich, obviously, and also at Chris Ballard. That maybe Jim Irsay is just kind of, he's over this era of Colts football, and a lot of the shine is kind of worn off Chris Ballard over the past year or two. It's worn off of Frank Reich, who's gone from the quarterback whisperer to like failing back-to-back reclamation projects. And I do also think too, it's like part of this is like, the Colts offensive line like hasn't been helping Matt Ryan out. I think this is also maybe like part of a Colts belief. I'm totally projecting here that Matt Ryan is making the offensive line look worse than it actually is.
Yeah, sure.
Because as we know, offensive line play can frequently actually just be quarterback play.
Yeah.
And when Matt Ryan, every defense that's facing the Colts knows Matt Ryan cannot move. You play defense just totally different. You can take more chances. You don't have to respect the deep passing game. You can tee off on the quarterback more. I think this might be a way too for the Colts. I'm pretty sure the Colts probably think their offensive line is better than has looked at Matt Ryan. Of course, it's a recommitment to the running game. You don't put in like a former 6th round pick who's known as a dual threat if you're not going to recommit to the run game. So Jonathan Taylor, even before the ankle injury, his touch counts have been kind of shaky. I think he only had like 15 touches or something in his week 7 return. I think we're going to see a full-on recommitment to the running game. And like the week 6, like 58 attempts or whatever, obviously a total mirage. I mean, I think even now, like 30 attempts could be difficult to get to for a while for the Colts passing game. And real bad for everyone not named Michael Pittman. I do think – so last week I tried to talk you off of Paris Campbell because I'm like, well, Alec Pierce, I know he doesn't fit this skill set, but I think Alec Pierce's role is sticky. He's like he's the designated downfield guy. I still think that might be kind of true, even with Sam Ehlinger.
No, I do too.
Alec Pierce says, his targets could remain like surprisingly sticky at like 6 to 8. And even though the overall attempts will be going down, I think they will still try to funnel as many looks as possible to Michael Pittman. I don't think it hurts Pittman and maybe Pierce that bad. Totally agree with you that the short-lived Paris Campbell season is fully over.
Yeah. I thought I picked him up in a couple of leagues and I thought, we're going to get this terrible quick hitting Colts offense for the rest of the season. Might as well plug in Paris Campbell as a guy who's going to see 10 targets a game. That's definitely over. Alec Pierce is still going to be frustrating, I think, for fantasy because, he's going to see 5 to 7 targets. And if he doesn't hit on one of them, it's going to be, pretty bleak. But if he hits on one and if he hits on 2, you're looking at a huge week. So just embrace the volatility there, I think, if you have to with Alec Pierce. Yeah,
he's from kind of the Marquez Valdez-Scantling school of fantasy, where 0-point floor, but the kind of guy who can change a week, flip a matchup on only 2 or 3 catches if one of them happens to be like a 45-yard touchdown.
Yes.
Or even just like a 45-yard non-touchdown. So, don't go dropping Alec Pierce. I mean, not that anyone's probably like racing out to drop Alec Pierce. Like, I know we have like emotional droppers. Like they just saw the news Monday afternoon. Like, well, that's it. I'm dropping Alec Pierce. I'm not even adding him. I think you can kind of wait and see with Alec Pierce. Are we streaming Sam Ehlinger against the Commanders? We haven't even have any data on this.
So I think because of he has some rushing juice, and you got to give that to him. And I think that provides some floor. So even if he's not great through the air, which he probably won't be, He might be a guy who takes off and gives you, that 30, 40, 50 yards on the ground. That's incredibly valuable. That's a touchdown. That's a touchdown on the ground. Passing touchdown on the ground fantasy wise. So I think there are better streaming options. Daniel Jones comes to mind, a couple other guys, but yeah, 14 team league. I think you're looking pretty strongly at Ellinger if you don't have an elite option.
Yeah, Daniel Jones' week is here, by the way. 3 of his best 6 rushing efforts of his entire career have come in the past month.
Yeah.
Finally has a live receiver in Wan'Dale Robinson. Kadarius Toney, I know Bigfoot doesn't seem like he's coming back anytime soon. But who are the Giants playing this week, by the way, Mr. Denny?
Yeah. Not New Orleans. What is it? Jones is playing the Seattle. They're playing Seattle.
Sorry, very riveting. I should have either written that down or asked you to write that down.
They're playing Seattle, and yeah, it couldn't look better for Jones. Of course, nothing could go wrong.
Yeah, of course. And a team that everyone had been teeing off on, the Seahawks, until they played the extremely down bad Los Angeles Chargers. And we got 50 more attempts and under 300 yards yet again from Justin Herbert. Joe Lombardi, you need to answer for your crimes.
Can we get Congress to look into this?
What? Yeah, whatever. It doesn't even have to be under oath. But will you testify?
Just casually, can Joe Lombardi go to Washington D.C. and talk about what he's doing with the Chargers offense?
And yeah, you can even begin for a few minutes, like telling stories about your grandfather, the great Vincent Lombardi. You can start off kind of jovial, friendly. Then there might be just a light grilling. It's not under oath again. You don't even need to bring a lawyer, Joe. It's fine.
No, they don't have to be whispering over your shoulder as you talk to the senators.
Yeah, don't bring a lawyer. That's always really good advice, Joe Lombardi.
That's what you told me.
Yeah, I
know. And it worked out.
I know. Yeah, you're still working here, so it did work out. So we don't quite know what to expect from the Indianapolis Colts going forward. We probably know what to expect from the New York Jets going forward without Breece Hall. Probably the saddest injury of the year so far. Breece Hall is looking like such a dynamic young player. Had ripped a 62-yard touchdown before tearing his ACL in Denver on Sunday. There's no way to sugarcoat what's a brutal, brutal loss for fantasy managers, even worse for the New York Jets. But we do know things are going to shake out. Michael Carter is going to be the starter. They probably kind of want it to be a committee, but really the only other real back on the roster is Ty Johnson, who's kind of a pure pass catcher. They are now lacking someone with an early down pedigree. So I could see things maybe getting a little weird in the Jets backfield. Maybe with someone who's not on the roster right now. Maybe if someone's on the roster that we just don't really know about. But do you think this is as easy as, and so again, this is a true, not in my league. Michael Carter was already rostered in 65, 66% of Yahoo leagues. So he's not going to be available many places. But if you already have Michael Carter, what are the realistic expectations for Michael Carter?
So the Michael Carter you got when he was the lead back to start the season is not the Michael Carter you're going to get now, because the Jets are one of the most conservative run heavy teams in the league. They're hiding what is generously one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL in Zach Wilson. Come on. It's awful.
I tried to get a little more positive about Zach. Yeah, as you know, I wouldn't say we disagreed about it, but I tried to just remind myself you got to remain open-minded with these young quarterbacks. And so I was giving Zach Wilson a chance, but the Jets are not giving Zach Wilson a chance because they have absolutely zero faith in him. And his play has been very, 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 very concerning.
Right. So in short, you're definitely not getting, 8 to 10 targets, whatever you were getting when Joe Flacco was under center for New York. You're not getting that. What you are getting is a lot of the early down work, probably, 70 to 80% of the pass routes out of the backfield, which is an elite mark. We see that route participation rate among backs like Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, like true pass catching specialists and guys who really excel. We will get that with Michael Carter. And I wrote about this a lot in the preseason. Some are saying too much, that Michael Carter was by almost every measure very efficient, one of the most efficient pass catching backs and rushing backs in the NFL last year. I don't know if he can keep that up in the current offense. They have some offensive line issues now. That Zach Wilson is a detriment to the whole team. in fantasy. But I think with Michael Carter, you have an easy top 20 guy who, importantly, should see a lot of green zone work, a lot of work near the goal line.
I do think he'll be top 20. I do think week 8 is not going to be a realistic representation of what things are going to look like for this backfield, like most weeks. And it's going to be a week that kind of gives people who've already been rostering Michael Carter heart palpitations because they're playing the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
The Patriots had an early season reputation for having a really shaky run defense. They kind of turned that around. They totally erased the Browns running game in week 6. And even if their run game personnel is kind of shaky, with the Jets just presenting zero passing threat. I mean, now Corey Davis is injured with an MCL injury. Right. We assume Elijah Moore will be back. I mean, with Bill Belichick, it's not going to be any mystery what he's going to have to do in week 8. They're going to sell out to stop the Jets running game. They're going to make Zach Wilson beat them. And I think it's going to be just a really, 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 really tough week for the Jets offense, and that it's going to be maybe fairly bleak for Michael Carter in his first game without Breece Hall. And that just fantasy managers are going to have to accept that it might be a tough first game post Breece Hall, and then better returns will be on the way after they're done with the Bill Belichick boogeyman. Why is Bill so mean?
Yes, it is. It is. Thank you, Bill, for ruining Michael Carter manager's happiness coming into week 8. The Patriots play, I think the least amount of too high safety coverages in the NFL. We're going to see that a lot Monday night against the Bears because there's no reason to play too high safeties against the Bears. And there's no reason to do that against the Jets. So they will be crowding the line of scrimmage. I think they will be focused on shutting down the run, making sure that Zach Wilson has to beat them. And I have a story for you that starts with Zach Wilson not beating the Patriots.
And by the way, I mean, that Monday night game already happened between the Bears and the Patriots. And
yes. And
I got to say, I'm glad to actually have a good primetime game. When that stuff happened, that was good.
Yeah, there was the pass. You remember the pass that was downfield?
Yeah, Joe Buck actually woke up midair this week. Actually, what has become his annual Monday evening.
Troy Aikman was not yelling about the analytics.
Yeah. I gotta be honest. We shouldn't get too much into talking about our competitors and their announcers. I know a lot of people do not like Troy Aikman. For some reason, I frankly enjoy listening. I know he's not coming at it from the analytics perspective. That's for darn tootin'.
Oh my gosh, it actually it brings me actual pain to listen to him be like, oh,
he's
Joe,
gotten very cranky the past few years, just not about analytics, and that's kind of what I've been enjoying. He'll just get he'll start just getting openly disgusted with Jimmy Garoppolo. We're I think it's one of the reasons he finally left Fox, so he didn't have to call an NFC game every week. So he just wasn't watching Jimmy Garoppolo every other week. He was over it.
I am, but I'm so tired of the shtick that starts with him saying, I don't know what the numbers say, Joe, but here's what you got to do. I mean, you have a team full of men, and those men got to know that you're in it to win it, and stuff like that. I will say a kind of an opinion I've developed on it now, especially from I listen to so many baseball games, and we're not there's always everyone now on the internet just wants all the baseball announcers don't be talking about the most esoteric advanced stats imaginable, and all I really want is someone that's I've gone full boomer. I just want to be entertained. I already know all the numbers stuff. I read it on Twitter the entire game. I don't need I don't need the announcers talking about EPA or whatever, because I'm already getting that main line to me on the internet during the game. Yeah,
but frankly, I just want someone entertaining to listen to.
Think about all the normies who don't know. There's so many normies watching football who don't know this stuff. They're not mainlining. They're not mainlining EPA data. They're not mainlining bots on Twitter that are telling you when a team should and shouldn't go for it on fourth down. They don't know that stuff, and they'll never know.
And I don't care if they know. I know. I don't even want them to know. It helps me that they don't know.
It doesn't help me. It gives me heartburn.
It helps me that they don't know. I was trying to think of a good transition for this. So I always have a transition. I don't have enough transition for this next one. We're talking about Gus Edwards. And, I guess he's the priority ad this week, Mr. Denny. He was under 50% rostered. 16 carries, a total he'd never bettered, I believe, in 2020. John Harbaugh, you could tell he had been waiting for this moment. He had been keeping a diary every day, one day closer to Gus the Bus coming back.
Yes, unleash.
They unleashed Gus What are the ramifications of unleashing Gus? It seemed like it was kind of a tough watch, according to you in our Slack chat. And how much is too much? I'll start with the leading question. It seemed like maybe kind of this could end up like a high watermark maybe for Gus. Like, I don't know, maybe not. Just what the heck should we be thinking about Gus Edwards? What should we be bidding?
Look,
Fab.
I really don't think you need to chase Gus Edwards on the waiver wire this week. I actually think that, and I've done a fair amount of research today of writing the waiver wire column, which will be up on NBCSportsEdge.com on Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock Eastern time. I like Deontay Foreman over Gus Edwards. And it's because Foreman has, with the injury to Chuba Hubbard, and I know it may not be a serious injury, but with that injury, with Foreman's profile, with the Panthers offense, I think that Foreman has a path to a more fantasy-friendly role. Look, Edwards got 16 carries in a game where Lamar Jackson threw 16 passes, okay? For some reason, the Ravens went, they went full Chicago Bears.
They went Mariota season.
Right. It was like Arthur Smith was coaching the Ravens. And that stunk. That stunk for fantasy. And the fact that they did it when Gus Edwards was back, maybe it was because it was against the Browns, who have one of the 2 or 3 worst rush defenses in the league. Maybe that's the case. I will say that he's still trapped in a 3-way timeshare backfield committee. Okay, Justice Hill is still back there. He had the second most snaps. Kenyon Drake had the third most snaps. None of them cleared 40% snap rate. Kenyon Drake still saw 11 carries for 5 yards, by the way. So, I mean, yeah, Kenyon Drake's not good.
Yeah, just by the way, hopefully you don't remember anything we said about Kenyon Drake. Actually, we were pretty negative on Kenyon Drake.
I was extremely. I remember I talked to you. I said, no. Kenyon Drake thing's not happening.
That's right.
So here's my approach to both the Ravens and the Chiefs backfields right now. Who cares? I'm good chasing I'll go after other running backs on the waiver wire. I will stash other guys who can bring me real upside. I'm not going to chase 2 touchdowns from Gus Edwards every week. That's not happening.
It's not going to happen, but obviously a lot of people just don't have that luxury.
No.
I'm trying to think who I started. There's someone I started on Sunday. It was just like absolutely unspeakable. And it was only like a 12-team league.
Tevin Coleman.
I started Tevin Coleman last week in the same league. I wish I were kidding. I dropped Tevin Coleman. Oh, it was Craig Reynolds. So some of us are out here starting Craig Reynolds, Denny, in 12-team leagues. So I think you absolutely have to put in a bid on Gus Edwards.
Sure.
But it'd be malpractice not to be putting in a bid on Gus Edwards.
Look, but no pass catching work, okay? No. And he has no prospect for pass catching work. No. First of all, Lamar doesn't check down to his running back. Second of all, he's not out there running routes. So he is Gus Edwards is severely limited as to how many opportunities he can get, how many fantasy points he can score in a given week. So I'm trying not to get too psyched up about this, but I will say that I think that the Gus Edwards season is overblown because of the 2 short touchdowns, one of which came Rashad Bateman being tackled at the 1-inch line.
It isn't. He played only 23 snaps, I think, and got 16 carries. So it was like a clear commitment. But I also just think like 16 carries is maybe kind of a ceiling, because just seeing the way things have gone with J.K. Dobbins, I doubt it was the guy who spent 6 games on the PUP list. I doubt they're going to want to be like adding too much extra mileage to his surgically repaired knee. I mean, maybe he looks totally ready for it.
Yeah.
But I feel like he was at his workload ceiling already. And as you say, I was really, really the results were really enhanced by 2 touchdowns, but this isn't usually going to happen for Gus Edwards in a Lamar Jackson-led offense. So you absolutely, of course you bid on Gus Edwards, but yeah, he doesn't seem like someone where you're not trying to win Gus Edwards at all costs.
No. I mean, there's nobody on the waiver wire that,
not this week.
I mean, man, I hope everybody went in on Ken Walker.
Whew. Yeah, I know. Man, gosh, I didn't get him anywhere because he was pretty much not in my league. He was already rostered in basically all my leagues.
Yeah, no, I mean, good God. He was like drafted before Rashad Penny in most of my leagues.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, he's been rostered since high school in all these Devy leagues. But we'll be right back after this. Download the Rotoworld app to receive breaking player news all season long. Stay ahead of the competition by favoriting players on your roster. Get the latest injury updates, player news, and much more delivered right to your phone. It's available in your app store today. And just a reminder, if you don't have the NBC Sports Predictor app, go download it now. The contests are free and easy to play, and you have a shot to win thousands this weekend by predicting what will happen in college football, on the NASCAR circuit, and in the Premier League. There's also $100,000 up for grabs by guessing the outcome between the Packers and Bills in our Sunday Night 7 contest. Man, I realized NBC, we were getting the last stand of Aaron Rodgers this week. That'll be –
oh, boy.
You'll be waiting. I know you'll be waiting all day for Aaron Rodgers' last stand.
I wait all week for Sunday night, but I obviously wait. I do wait all day. This is Jon Snow facing the army charging toward him.
It is.
With the, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, usually players like Aaron Rodgers are in this kind of situation. They do rally back, but the roster
would be incredible. It would be like, no, I don't want to say career defining because he has a Super Bowl, but
yeah,
pretty far up there. Look, on the road in Buffalo against a tough defense, huge underdogs, no pass catching help. This would be incredible. I think that they're going to get their faces stomped in.
Yeah, they just lost to the Jets and Commanders.
The Commanders. Once again, we have to emphasize that, and the Commanders.
Yeah, and just hard to imagine how you rally from that.
In a stadium full of Packers fans, they lost to them.
They did. Yeah, I know. I mean, it was a home game, and
yeah.
But by the way, hashtag sell the team, Dan. I mean, come on,
please, for the love.
So you already kind of talked about this next one. You're prioritizing Deontay Foreman over Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. What's the Monday update on Chuba's ankle injury? Maybe we should check that. We're talking about.
You check that. I'm going to talk about Deontay Foreman real quick. So the thing with Foreman, so he was picked up in a lot of leagues after Christian McCaffrey was traded to San Francisco. He is rostered in about half of Yahoo leagues, which is way more than I thought. Nevertheless, I'm going to talk about him. So in week 7, Chuba Hubbard left the game in the second half with an ankle injury.
It seems there hasn't been any. Adam Schefter reported Sunday night he could have come back. There's actually yet to be an update to that as of Monday afternoon. It seemed like maybe, the Panthers knew they didn't need Chuba Hubbard to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of the worst teams in the NFL. So they kind of they played it safe. They kept Chuba out.
Well, look, Foreman was really, really good last year, all the way back, from an early career Achilles injury. Foreman from week 12 to 17 last year had the 8th most rushing yards among all running backs. He was 13th among all running backs in yards before contact per attempt, which is like an indication of explosiveness, running to daylight, like finding the running lanes, things of that nature. Deontay Foreman's really good. He had over 100 yards against the Bucs. It was a lot of it was on a 60-yard run after he broke a tackle. He also caught 2 balls for 27 yards. He's a good pass catcher as well. So I really think that in the long run, Foreman's path to fantasy viability and path to something approaching upside is clearer than Gus Edwards.
And then speaking of Deontay Foreman versus Chuba Hubbard, the reason they added Deontay Foreman is because Chuba kind of got overexposed as the fill-in for Christian McCaffrey. I mean, it wasn't a good situation, of course, where any kind of anyone would have looked bad for that Panthers team down the stretch last season, or probably will look bad for this Panthers team down the stretch this season. It is a weird situation. I was a little surprised that Chuba got the first crack. He was announced as the starter. He basically had the lead for the first 3 quarters. I mean, Deontay was mixing in and remaining involved. I would say it doesn't. I wouldn't say case closed on whatever's going on in this Panthers backfield, but my first instinct was Deontay Foreman. And now with Chuba, there's been no indication on Monday this is a serious ankle injury. It seems like he'll probably play for week 8, but that's probably enough to tie break in Deontay's favor for week 8. And there's 2. It's so weird. They're playing an elite Bucs defense, but a very good chance this is the high water mark for both of them. What happened against the Bucs?
Possibly, I mean, Foreman's not going to rip off a 60-yarder every week, obviously. Notably, Foreman played all of the 2-minute drill snaps for the Panthers per Pro Football Focus. So I do think that they see him as a viable pass catcher. I guess Hubbard should be picked up too. I tend to lean toward Foreman as the guy who can emerge here as the lead back.
I do too, just because Deontay Foreman was just a better player than Chuba last year. I mean, he was on a different team, but he was just a better player than Chuba.
Yeah.
They went out and a vote of no confidence in Chuba, added Deontay Foreman. And producer Adam reminds, by the way, Deontay Foreman had a 2,000-yard season at Texas, then gave way to Mr. Sam Ehlinger in 2000. You just wish you could see Deontay Foreman and Sam Ehlinger reunite at the NFL level. They would wreck this league.
This is all anybody's wanted for years.
It is. They would wreck. I can't be the only one who thinks they would wreck this league. So if anyone remembers that Twitter deep cut.
I do.
So,
our brains are not well.
They're not well. No. And they never will be. Speaking of not well, Denny, Kyle Pitts. 9 yards. They trailed. I already went through this in the podcast, Pat Rain. The Falcons trailed 21-0, 5 seconds into the second quarter on Sunday. They trailed 28-17 at halftime. They trailed 35-17 at the 5-minute mark of the third quarter, and they still attempted 13 passes. Just not a serious offensive approach. We've had it proven there's no game script that will make the Falcons pass heavy. That game script is, if that didn't happen Sunday, that game script does not exist. I mean, I'm sure some people already are talking about dropping Kyle Pitts. I feel like you just still can't do that. I mean, I'm just going to scream upside, and that's like basically the only argument. But he possesses upside. A lot of these guys do. But would we have already dropped Kyle Pitts? If Kyle Pitts were Hayden Hurst, he would have been on the waiver wire a long time ago.
He would have been on the waiver wire week 1. It would have been back then. Look, you can't continue to slam your head against the wall here and say, well, this is the week that they're going to pass a lot. It doesn't look that the fact that Kyle Pitts is a generational talent literally doesn't matter at all right now. Okay. It might matter someday after 5 years of Arthur Smith coaching this team, but it doesn't matter now. And so you have options like, I mean, I talked about it on the waiver show on YouTube. You have options now. You have Cade Otton, who's a better fantasy option than Kyle Pitts. You have Jawan Johnson, who is a better fantasy option than Kyle Pitts.
Please.
He is. No, it's true. Like ours is a game within a game, okay, Kyle Pitts is elite athletically and everything and every other way. And it doesn't matter. And Cade Otton is out there running 50 routes a game. That's what you want, So I think that it is time to give up the ghost on Kyle Pitts.
Will you straight up tell people to drop Kyle Pitts?
If you
don't have the guts, do you?
It's hard. It's hard to tell people to drop their 3rd round pick. But if you need room, if you're struggling through buys or whatever, yeah, do it.
Yeah, there's only 2 teams on bye this week. What are you talking about?
Oh my God. Well,
sorry. I mean, we are holding on to a name more than a game right now. So there is no doubt about that.
You absolutely cannot roster Kyle Pitts in 10-team leagues.
No, you cannot.
There's no reason.
No, there's not. Ugh, man, it's just so sad. But
yeah,
if not Sunday, then when? And I feel like it's so frustrating because this does happen quite often in fantasy. We're like, well, that's it. It didn't happen in this one situation. It's over. And then, of course, because it's the stupid NFL, it does happen. But like you said, that's just like blind faith. Like we played 7 games. I mean, at this point, blind faith is really the only argument. You're believing a superstition in Kyle Pitts at this point.
Yeah, right. And don't be superstitious, even though it is Halloween season. You can't do that. Also, look, like I said, there are lots of waiver wire options running a ton of routes. Like there are guys you can replace him with. I think you're giving up. Basically, you're giving up like possibly like 10 PPR points a week if you're starting Kyle Pitts over some waiver wire options.
So someone who could be a waiver wire option, Denny, now is James Robinson. Is he droppable after the 0-touch fiasco that was his week 7?
Right. So if folks missed it, no carries, 1 target. He had 5 snaps against the Giants. It is over for James Robinson as a viable fantasy play. Also, you can't drop him. I mean, because his contingency value is great. It's the same thing with Kareem Hunt. You can't really start Kareem Hunt. He's not seeing a lot of touches in the Cleveland backfield, but you can't drop him because his contingency value. Because if Chubb goes down, you have a Hunt getting 20, 25 touches a game. It's the same thing, similar thing, I should say, with James Robinson. He probably wouldn't get 20 to 25 touches, but he would be the lead back. So you don't drop him, but it's his days as the team starter clearly over.
Clearly, yeah, there's nothing fluky about zero
No.
touches. Like that's a coaching decision, and then it doesn't help that Travis Etienne then was quite good on his 15 touches.
Yeah, Etienne's gotten like unlucky with some stuff. I know he fumbled, but it was like an amazing play by the defender to pop the ball out, even though Etienne had the ball like tucked in. And I mean, it wasn't. I just feel like Etienne has gotten some bad fortune and could really break out over the season second half.
Yeah, it would have been one thing for James Robinson if Etienne had like 42 yards from scrimmage. Then maybe they'd go back to the draw. It's just, why would they go back to the drawing board after that game? And again, zero touches is probably a fluke. That's probably an outlier. Like, I think most weeks James Robinson will probably still get like maybe even 6 to 8 touches, to be honest. Especially with how much the Jags passing game is struggling. So it's like zero, like that's a fluke. But there's just not enough coming back. He's not going to be a flex value until someone gets hurt, and that's someone being Travis Etienne. Like you said, the contingent value is humongous. I agree that you got to keep him if you can. But also, I got to agree. I mean, what if you're like in a cult situation and you're 2-5 and you're desperate for a roster spot? I don't know. Maybe cut him loose.
Also, I'm wondering if his injury, if his Achilles situation has regressed at all, and that would make JaMychal Hasty as something of a pickup. Hasty would be next in line behind Robinson. Or, I mean, there's a scenario where Etienne misses time and Hasty takes over. Like, if they're really not using Robinson at all, then who says that they'll say, okay, well, now that Etienne's hurt, we're back to James. James is the unquestioned lead back.
So yeah, but tough development if you had been flexing James Robinson. Speaking of tough developments, Denny, Isaiah Pacheco is finding new ways to break fantasy managers' hearts. A lot of fanfare Sunday morning from a few reporters that he was going to be the starter. And then he did start, and then he technically played more snaps than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire yet again scored a touchdown because that's just what he does, apparently. Jerick McKinnon played more snaps than either of them. Is Pacheco's season, is it over once again before it even began? Once again? Question mark.
Look. This is the same thing with the Ravens backfield. It's like a shoulder shrug. Like, okay, it's a three-way split in the backfield. Jerick McKinnon had the most snaps in Week 7 against the Niners. Was very effective on his limited touches, including in the passing game. Pacheco has no path to pass catching work. He would need to score a touchdown or two to deliver a fantasy viable stat line with the limited number. He had eight carries. And I believe 4 of them came in the fourth quarter.
It's a game they won by 21 points and he got 8 carries.
Exactly. So just like stick with me here for a second. Like with Kyle Pitts and Drake London this past week, if they can't get there for fantasy purposes in that game script against the Bengals, and if Pacheco can't get there as the newly named starter in a blowout win against the Niners, then when are they going to get there? They're never going to get there. So the most important thing we have to remember about Pacheco being named the starter is that it doesn't matter at all.
It feels a little strong, but
it doesn't matter.
Now they're on bye too.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I don't care about Pacheco at all. I don't care about CEH Pacheco. Nobody. I'm hoping that Jerick McKinnon carves out a bigger role here, and I think that he's worth rostering. Now, all these guys should be rostered.
But
obviously.
But they come up by against the Titans, by the way, who are much better on the ground than through the air. So it's not like he's going to come roaring out in Week 9. Pacheco.
No, please don't blow a bunch of fab on Pacheco.
I will say Pacheco playing the Chargers in Week 11. I'm date circling because that is that he's going for 132 yards on 20 carries against the Chargers.
20 carries for a Chiefs running back. Oof. Wow.
Even Andy Reid's going to have to run the ball against the Chargers, who just cannot stop a soul on the ground yet again with their supposedly defensive-minded head coach.
No.
Brandon Staley's a bad head coach, Denny. I'm sorry, but he just...
Oh, no. The analytics movement is over.
Yeah, he is ending it. We need a real analytics person to further the analytics movement instead of... My rant about Brandon Staley on Twitter, too, is like he's not... Like he's perceived... In Troy Aikman talking head terms, he's perceived as aggressive because he goes for it on 4th downs, kind of nonsensically. but he's like one of the least aggressive coaches in the entire league. And what I tweeted is basically they have like an Andy Dalton mentality for like every play, except for when it's 4th and 4. Justin Herbert's supposed to become like Josh Allen or something.
Right.
Like they're fake aggressive. It's a fake show.
They are. No, it is a fake. So our new analytics king is Mike McDaniel. That's what I'll say. We have to keep gravitating toward nerdy head coaches until we find one who is successful with the analytics. Although, hey, you know what? Mike McDaniel continued in the tradition of Brandon Staley on Monday night or Sunday night against the Steelers, and he went forward on 4th down, and he called a play that could not have been successful. It was a Chase Edmonds run up the middle on 4th and 3. I was designed specifically not to convert the 4th down. So again, I would appreciate if analytically minded head coaches would try to convert on 4th down.
And the analytics actually said to kick it there. And the gut definitely said to kick it there. Like I was watching Kenny Pickett, like, yeah, just make this a 9-point game and it is over.
Right. I mean, yeah, when your opposing quarterback is that bad, then yes, I think probably you do kick it.
Denny, we'll go some waivers rapid fire. Who is your priority receiver ad of this great week 8?
Yeah, I mentioned Alec Pierce a second ago. He's available in about half of leagues. Wan'Dale Robinson, still available in. Oh, I just had it. Oh yeah, in 70% of Yahoo leagues.
Way too many.
The folks did not flock to the waiver wire.
No, they did not.
To get him. Makes me wonder if they're reading carefully. His route rate went from about 35% in week 7 or week 6, 35% in week 6 to about 85% in week 7. He led the team in targets. You know, I do think that you can't get too pumped up about Wan'Dale Robinson. I think,
it's true.
He's a PPR scam. He's going to get a lot of those dinks and dunks. Hopefully he breaks one of these days. It's a little bit of a Rondell Moore situation. But I think that he's fine as a wide receiver 3 that you can plug in. If you have to start 3 or 4 wide receivers, you feel okay about having Wan'Dale.
Danny, who is the tight end ad of the week? Where it seemed like you were much more interested. It seemed like you wrote 2,000 or 3,000 words in the early version of your waivers column I got on tight ends. And it seemed like you didn't write any words on wide receivers, just to be frank.
We're working on that. My interns are hustling to write about some tight end. Wide receivers, because we've been told that we have to include wide receivers. Kate Otten, I know you're tired of me talking about Kate Otten, but I'm going to continue. He's available in 85% of leagues. Cam Bray, I think, will miss probably another game. They play on a short week this week against the Ravens. Cam Bray hurt his neck, pretty serious neck injury just 2 weeks ago. So Kate Otten, in his first start, led all tight ends in the NFL in routes. In his second start, he was second in routes run. He's not a target commander by any means. Look, he's behind Mike Evans. He's behind Chris Godwin in the pecking order, probably even Russell Gage at times, and Leonard Fournette. But hey, when you pass it 45 times, those targets filter down to almost everybody. We saw that with Tyler Boyd this week. Tyler Boyd is finally a thing because the Bengals have said, hey, we just discovered that we have a good quarterback. We're going to throw it a lot now. And congrats to the Bengals for discovering Joe Burrow in week 6 and 7. So Kate Otten is definitely one. Greg Dulcich.
I was going to say, please at least mention him.
Greg Dulcich. I always say Dulcich. Dulcich.
You were lapsed into a Michael Caine there, trying to say Greg Dulcich.
I did. I'm too British. Many are saying.
I was going to say, by the way, the reason, just to not take people too far behind the curtain, the reason you were not eligible to be the leader of the British Conservative Party and become the new prime minister was when they found out that you trick-or-treated at age 18. They thought that was just too weird, and you were disqualified from the leadership contest.
I couldn't outrun that. Yeah, I all the MPs who had supported me, they fled immediately. What can you do?
And especially in England, they were very upset that you were not doing drugs at age 18.
Right. Boris Johnson was appalled.
Yeah, he was appalled.
So Dulcich, he's run a route on 91% of Denver's dropbacks over his first 2 games. That is tremendous usage. He's been used in the slot on 65% of his routes. That's like That's like Mark Andrews type usage. I'm, and people are, oh, you're saying Greg Dulcich is Mark Andrews. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. No. But he's going to be out there a lot, running a ton of routes. Hopefully Russell Wilson is back soonish, and hopefully he is maybe slightly less terrible than he has been. But anyway, it's a luxury. It's a luxury to pick up a tight end with this sort of role, even on a terrible offense, and to be able to plug him in deeper leagues. I think you do it.
Speaking of England, that is somehow where the Broncos are heading this weekend. Oh. It is uncanny. Like, without fail, if you were having your worst moment as a franchise of the decade, you will somehow have a London game that week.
Yeah.
And it's the Denver Broncos versus, I'm not making this up, the New York Jets in London. Or no, I think it's against the Jaguars.
No, it's the yearly Jags thing where the sad Jaguars fans in England have to watch their team.
So without fail, if your franchise is on the brink, guess what? It's time to charter a plane to London, England.
Well, with Urban Meyer last year, right?
Yeah. And just play a horrific game of football for our friends across the pond. Those of you who once dominated us and who now we dominate.
Right. We humiliate with terrible football.
Exactly. Freed of the English yoke, and we retaliate by sending the worst football.
It's very passive aggressive, but I think it works.
It is extraordinarily and even the English, though, they got to hand it to a good American passive aggressive attack, because they know a thing or two about passive aggression.
Yes, so, they are famously passive aggressive.
Famously passive aggressive. This show is famously over. For Denny Carter, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Check out the waivers column that will be live almost certainly by the time you're listening to this, unless you're listening to it on Monday night, where then it won't be up yet, because Denny needs to write about the wide receivers still. And just hope you're ready for the show after that just extraordinary Monday night game Denny and I have already witnessed.
Yeah,
so
great.
Check out Denny's article. Check out his Q&A on the NFL on NBC YouTube page, 1 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Check out my pre-ranks, which will be up at noon Eastern on Tuesday. Listen to all of our shows later this week. Read all of our content later this week. Once again, for Denny, I'm Pat. We will catch you later.